We're live. Good. Very good evening, gentlemen. No ladies present. Okay. Good evening. I'm Councillor Ian Edwards. I'm Chairman of the Central and South Planning Committee. Before we get into the formal part of the agenda, for the benefit of members of the public who are present, just a few announcements. Also, welcome to anybody who may be following us on YouTube. It is filmed, and you can look at this meeting and the discussions that went on through YouTube. The camera is that dome bit in the ceiling there. It isn't facing the public gallery. It's only facing this way. The only people that become on that screen are anybody who speaks as a petitioner. Can I ask, please, that mobile phones are turned off and residents' feedback forms are available for you to fill in. Most importantly, though, no fire alarm is expected. If one sounds, we will be evacuating. Gentlemen, no need to panic because we will accompany you. We'll show you out. However, for your reassurance, the best way out is the way you came in, through those doors, but then downstairs. If that is blocked for any reason, there are fire exits behind us. Okay, we're definitely now beyond our time, so we can get into the meeting proper. A very quick overview of how the meeting is going to be run. The Planning Committee is a meeting held in a public forum. However, it's not a public meeting. The only people that speak are the petitioner and the respondent and applicant in an agent in response, plus ward councillors. Now, I know that we do have petitions this evening, and the petitioners are here, and there's nobody else, so we can move reasonably quickly on from that point. I would talk to you about how we give the petition in a minute. But let me just introduce you to people around the table. There's a lot of us for a planning committee. You may wonder who we are and what we do. The actual committee is made up of councillors, and they are the decision makers. And on my far left-hand side, we have Councillor John Morse, and then Councillor Peter Money, Councillor Brian Stead on my far right-hand side, Councillor Alan Chapman, Councillor Roy Chamdal, Councillor Sharia Ahmed Wallan, and Councillor David Yarrow. They, as I say, exercise their judgment and cast a vote on it, and I will only vote in the event of it being a tie. The other gentlemen around the table are experts that help us manage our meetings. On my far left-hand side is Glenn Egan, who was solicitor and gives us a legal advice as it's required. Neil Fraser, Democratic Services, keeps the meeting to order and prepares a record of the meeting. James Rogers, Head of Planning, gives expert planning advice. Meg Harani is a team leader in planning and can also give planning advice and comment, and is valued from his experience. However, his main role tonight is to present the applications. And Alan Tilley is our Transport and Aviation Manager and will comment when necessary on any transport road traffic type matters. Okay, so that's who we are, and we will very, very quickly run through some form of bit of business. First of all, apologies for absence.
No apologies at G, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Declarations of interest matters coming before the committee this meeting. Councillor Money.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got a pecuniary interest for agenda item 9, and I will be leaving the room, and also a pecuniary interest for agenda item 15, but I'll stay in the room.
Thank you very much. Any other interests? No. Thank you. To sign and receive the minutes, please, of the previous meeting, the 1st of March. Are they agreed? Thank you. There are no matters. Item 4, no matters being notified in advance or urgent. And item 5, confirm that the meeting is in 2 parts. And should, gentlemen, you wish to remain here to see the whole business through, we would have to break for matters of enforcement, which are in part 2. They are held in private. They're not recorded on video. However, the agenda item, the decisions are, and it's because they are relating to enforcement issues that they are held in. Everything else is in public. So the first part you are welcome to remain and listen to, or you may wish to leave after the application is heard. Okay, so we're now going to get into the business proper, and this is now agenda item 6, number 12, Cherry Orchard. Mr. Harani.
Thank you, Chairman. 12 Cherry Orchard is a detached dwelling and which has been extended. The current application is for conversion into 3 flats involving a part 2-storey, part single-storey rear extension, a single-storey front extension and an extension to the vehicular crossover. Various parts of this development have previously been approved and members will note from the summary and from the history relating to the site that previous application for conversion to a 2-bed and a 1-bed flat was approved last year, and that did involve extensions to the front, single-storey rear extension, and a vehicular crossover extension as well. And those elements are still part of this proposal. The additional part is the 2-storey element to the rear and the conversion to 3 flats rather than 2. In terms of the impact on adjoining properties, the extensions comply with council policy, and the size of the units complies. 3 parking spaces are proposed for 3 1-bed units, which also is acceptable. The main issue for members to consider is the size and design of the rear extension and the impact on the street scene from the front extensions, as I say, which has been approved, and from the parking layout. If I can just go through, if I can point out to members that we have received a petition against the proposal and a petition in support, which is set out in the addendum. If I can just go through the plans. These are the existing plans. The 2-storey sort of subsidiary element that you see is an addition, a previous addition to this property, which was approved quite some time ago. And the blue elements that you see on that plan are the additional works that are being proposed, the single-storey and part 2-storey rear, and the additional extension to the front on the ground floor. This is the existing property. What the front extension does is comes out the same as the bay window and goes across and covers the garage door. That's the rear element as it is. It's a 4-metre deep rear extension that's proposed on the ground floor and slightly less on the top floor. It goes across the full width of the property, and that's the adjoining properties. The extensions do comply with the 45-degree limitations that are set out in Council's supplementary document. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Roche, come in.
Yeah, if I can just make a couple of verbal corrections to, or rather changes to planning conditions. Members may wish to add our standard allocated parking condition. So the intention of that would be to ensure that that when the 3 spaces are provided, they are actually allocated in an even manner, with 1 space to each of the flats. And the other point is that to ensure that development is compliant with our HDAS standards, 25% of the front garden should be subject to soft landscaping. Officers think that can be done on this site, but if you could give me delegated authority to just make it clearer in condition 7 of the landscaping that the soft landscaping does need to cover 25% of the front garden. But as I say, that I don't think either of those conditions would be a problem in practice on this particular site. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Roger. Let me say, I had some concerns about this to start with regards to the extended drop curb that I felt is an interesting development in the street. However, it is been permitted as part of an extant planning permission, and therefore it is not worth our further consideration of that issue. What we have then is a relatively straightforward application before us, and colleagues, I open it for discussion and comment. Oh, sorry, my apologies. Petitioners. Oh, that's why I have people around me to help me. Our petitioner in support is present. The petitioner in objection is not. I will ask, though, Miss Lisa Topkins. No. Miss Akbar Philip. No. I've satisfied our requirements. Okay, so we have a petitioner in support, Mr. Amit Bakava. If you would like to come forward, sir, or your agent, either or both of you, you can join. It's a straightforward 5 minutes speaking time, okay? You will see before you a microphone with a button in the front. It is important that the microphone is on when you speak, otherwise it can't be captured on the YouTube. So when you start, you press the button and that lives up the microphone. As I say, you have 5 minutes speaking time. 4 minutes would be on amber, 1 minute, 4 on green and 1 on amber. Comes to the end of 5 minutes at the red light, and I will draw you to a close at that point. Okay, sir. So at your convenience, if you could state your name, because we don't have that as a matter of record, do we? You state your name, sir, please. Thank you.
Peter Norman. I'm the agent. Good evening, councillors and gentlemen. Basically, I just wanted to run through a couple of minor points on this. As Mr. Irani has already said, there is currently a planning approval on this to convert the house to flats. And actually the drop curb, as you quite rightly say, has now been implemented by your own highways department. So there was no problem with the width of the drop curb. It was considered, because it was a small cul-de-sac, that really wasn't going to cause major problems in that area. And as also your landscaping consultant said, that this does add an element of landscaping to the front garden, where the previous current layout doesn't give any landscaping, so it actually improves the outlook from there. The other points I wanted to raise were really the ones that were made as comments by the objectors. Basically, point one was it was out of keeping with the area because of flats. Now, flats have already been approved on this. All we're doing is changing it from 2 flats to 3 flats. The same amount of bedrooms. There'll be 3 one-bedroom flats instead of a 2-bedroom and a 1-bedroom. The proposal, they're commenting on the proposed result of loss of a home. Well, it's already been lost with your previous planning approval. The proposal raises highway safety issues. Again, as we said, there's already 3 parking spaces approved and set in the front, so this is no real change. Insufficient parking, well, it's meeting policies. Highways don't have any objections to that. Loss of sunlight to adjoining buildings. As the photograph previously showed, there is a large garage to the side where the extension is, so it has no impact whatsoever on the adjoining house or garden. Increased noise and intensity of development. Well, the existing house is 4-bedroom and there could be 8 people in there. With the new proposal, it's only going to be 6, so in theory it's going to be quieter than otherwise. Density is as per the London plan, and as they say in the London plan that they want to use properties more beneficially, which I think this does. Front porch has already been approved, and the last part about generating extra refuse, again, as I said, it's a 4-bedroom house, you can have that many people living there, so I don't really feel that there is any increase in that. It has been well considered by the planning department. It's been with you for nearly 6 months, this application, and it's been discussed and gone through, and as the recommendation for approval is, I think it's been well considered by the planning department, and I request that you go along with their recommendation. Okay? Any questions?
Thank you very much. There's still a minute there if you have anything you wish to say. No, thank you very much. Okay. Colleagues, do we have any questions at all of the applicant or the agent? Petitioners? No, thank you. Gentlemen, if I could invite you to return to your seats. Thank you. If we now get to any discussion and questions amongst ourselves. Colleagues? Councillor Yarrow.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll kick it off to start with. I think the petitioner has put both sides of the argument to us, both for and against, and in some respects demolished the against reasons for refusal. We're in a difficult situation in the sense that it has already got planning permission to do most of what they're actually wanting. It's only the extra two-storey rear extension, and that's really what we're talking about. And quite frankly, I don't think there is much need of any further discussions on this issue. I can't find any reasons why I would want to overturn the officer's recommendations. Consequently, I'll put it on the table and say that and move the officer's recommendations.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Chandal.
Yeah, I agree with David. I'd like to second it as well.
Thank you. Can I have a show of hands, please, on this one? To agree the officer's recommendations. Everybody, yes. Thank you. Thank you. That one's approved. Thank you very much. Good night, gentlemen. Agenda item. Sorry. Other gentleman. Which application are you here for? All right. We will get to that quite quickly. Okay. Thank you. I understand where you're from. Okay. Agenda item 7, the Stockley Park East Main entrance. Colleagues, this is a pretty straightforward matter that's been referred to us because it's in the green belt. We've all seen the plans. We have all seen the representation of what the sign will be looking like. Do we need to go any further in terms of... No. Councillor Stead.
I propose that we go with the officer's recommendations, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ahmed-Wulana.
Chairman, I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Show of hands, please, on this one. Everybody, thank you. We are now at agenda item 8, land forming part of 14 Moorefield Road, Cowley.
Thank you, Chairman. Members will know this site very well. I have had site visits a couple of times at least to this site, and as the history pages show, there have been a considerable number of applications relating to this site. Members will recall that they made a site visit to this premises for a two-storey rear extension and to look at the impact of that on the adjoining occupiers, and that extension was half of the property. Since then, planning permission has been granted on appeal for the conversion of the property into 2 separate units, and this proposal is to complete the other half of the two-storey rear. If I can just go through to the plans, you'll see this is the proposed and existing elevations. You'll see on the left-hand side of the rear elevation the existing two-storey element. On the right-hand side is its mirror, if you like, and these are the roof plans which show that better, I think. If I can go to the photographs, it will illustrate. The property to the right, where the extension is going, is set further back. It is extended with that two-storey element that you see, so the impact on that property is minimal, and the window that you see is to a bathroom there as well. So in terms of the 45 degrees, it does comply. That's the approval that was granted for the extension, and the current extension just mirrors that on the other side of the property. So so in essence, the appeal has allowed the 2 units. This extension has no impact on the adjoining occupiers, and your officers feel that even though the site's in a flood zone, it is a first floor extension and no impact on the flood zone. So all in all, we're recommending approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Regardless of what previous history we may have with this one, it seems a straightforward application, which is for the first floor. It has no detriment with regards to our policy on neighbouring properties. The issue of the floodplain has been adjudicated by the planning inspector and is not really worth our consideration any further. So if we can focus just our thinking, please, on the first floor extension and impact on the neighbours, if anybody has any views on this one. Councillor Chamdal.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for that guidance. that's cut off half of my speech. It's a property that we've visited so many times, and when we originally went to see it and the streets and everything else, we giggled, myself and David, Councillor Yarrow, of what we expected it to be in the near future, and it's really come about to be what it is. And it's even though I don't feel it fits in with the street scene at the front, I feel it stands out. There's nothing else here that we can actually refuse it on, and I move we go with officer's recommendation, basically.
Thank you very much. Councillor Chapman.
I'll second that, Chairman.
Thank you. Can we show of hands, please? That's everybody? That one's approved. Thank you. Agenda item 9, 29 Manor Lane, Harlington, conversion of roof space.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, very straightforward application. 29 Manor Lane is a bungalow. On bungalows, we do allow front dormers. The council's supplementary guidance does say that front dormers are acceptable on bungalows. The site does adjoin the Harlington Village Conservation Area, although it isn't within it, and you can see the boundaries of the conservation area in yellow stripes there. It is to the rear and to the side of the property, but it has no impact on the conservation area. The dormer complies fully with the council's guidance. There it is, and for that reason we're recommending approval.
Thank you. Colleagues, this is a straightforward matter, and it's only been brought to us as a matter of policy. Ordinarily, this would be considered under...
Chairman, I will move approval.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morse. Thank you very much, Councillor Yarrow. Show of hands, please, on this one. That's everybody. Thank you. Right. Simon, Councillor Peter Moneyback, please. We'll turn, if we can, get ready for number 1074 Long Lane.
74 Long Lane is a semi-detached dwelling. This property already has a two-storey side extension, and the current proposal is for a part two-storey, part single-storey re-extension. If I can go to the plans. The two-storey side extension does come up to the boundary. It wouldn't now comply with the council's policies, but that horse has bolted, and we therefore have to consider what's before us, which is the two-storey part single, part two-storey rear. The single-storey rear is in excess of our normal policy, but the adjoining property has an extension of the same depth, and therefore there's no impact on the adjoining occupiers. The two-storey rear element complies fully in terms of the 45 degrees from adjoining properties and its design, and the dormer again complies fully. So these are the elevations, no impact, and therefore we're recommending approval. There is an additional condition which is set out in the addendum, just preventing conversion to flats or multiple occupation without seeking the planning authorities' consent. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, discussion on this one? Councillor Sett?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm a little bit confused here. On this particular item, we've got no, I'm getting my things mixed up, sorry, Chairman. I was going to talk about dormers, where we're allowing it on bungalows, but I thought it's sort of a full-grown house as well, but it's not. No. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, please? Okay, somebody assist then. Councillor Yarrow, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, once again, I don't think there's any tangible reasons why we should be thinking of rejecting it. The house is big enough to accommodate all these modifications. I'm pleased to see that we're going to put some words in there to ensure that it doesn't actually turn into some kind of HMO or flats or whatever the nature of the beast is. So I will move that we accept the officer's recommendations to approve.
Subject to the amendation in the addendum sheet. Thank you. Do I have a seconder on that one, please? Anybody? Councillor Chamdale, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll second that.
Thank you. Show of hands, please, on this one then. That's everybody. Thank you. Number 11, 17 Manor Road, Hayes.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application. This property has been converted into 2 units in flats, and this application is for 2 separate outbuildings. The total floor space of those outbuildings would be over 50 square metres, and we feel that that is quite a large in total outbuilding for the size of the site and for the size of the units that are there. So for that reason we are recommending refusal. There's very little separation between them, and in terms of their impact we feel that it's unacceptable in terms of the size and scale of the buildings. So for that reason it is up for a refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Chamdale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the officer's reports state it quite clearly. It's a huge shed they want. I think the report's correct, and I'll move with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman. I'll second that, Chairman. Thank you very much. Show of hands, please, on this one. Everybody, thank you. Number 12, land forming part of 28 and 28 West Walk.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to state that this was deferred at the 7th of February meeting for a site visit. That site visit did take place. I would apologise to members for my failure to turn up at that meeting, but members will have looked at the site, and the officers' views are set out in the report. I did do a full presentation at the 7th of February meeting, so I don't intend to go through that. If I can just refresh members' minds with the plans. These are the existing plans and the proposed, and the photographs of the site. Just to the rear. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to assure everybody that a site visit did take place, and I was accompanied by some committee members, and we were quite able to take in the street scene and the view quite necessarily without the assistance of officers, so there was no detriment to the visit that took place. Could I ask, please, for a little bit of clarity on the non-standard reason for 2, which is about parking, why we believe that this is a sustainable refusal reason? Yeah.
I mean, so when you have family dwelling houses that proposed and existing that are 2-bed properties, we'd normally look for 1.5 spaces, so that would be a combined requirement of 3 parking spaces on this particular site. So that's why there is the refusal reason. Were you asking me, Chairman, how sustainable that might be at appeal?
Mm-hmm.
Where you have a shortfall of 1 space only, our track record at appeal is not great. Insofar as, if I was honest, I think that would be very difficult reasons to sustain that appeal, number 2.
Thank you very much. My observation from the street was that most properties there had a single parking space. We're not looking at building any property bigger than existing, and therefore I've felt, my view is that refusal reason 2 could probably not be sustained, as each property is allocated one, and it's difficult to allocate 1.5 spaces to a property. It is helpful when we're talking about larger developments, when we can aggregate up numbers, but on such a small development, I believe it would be difficult to argue that there is inadequate parking being provided. However, there is the substantive issue here of the impact on the street scene that does deserve serious consideration here. It's an area of special local character. The officers do draw out in the report quite strong reasons of why they believe this development is detrimental to it, and this is now a straightforward judgment of colleagues here, the committee, of whether or not the potential detriment or the argued detriment to the street scene is overweighed by the benefit of an additional property being built and the benefits that come with having a further house built. So that is the discussion. Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Chairman. When I looked at this, when you look at this area of local character, all the terrace sections are on the north side of the street. So the semi-detached on the south side, I'll take the view we ignore. I then took a number of photographs of the end houses on all these terraces, and on 3 of them we have completely broken all the local policies effectively, and I've got pictures of these if you wish to look at these, and some of them are pretty bad. And what I find surprising, this actual design seems to accommodate a lot of the concepts of the 20s original buildings with a hip roof, and I don't actually go along with the view that when you consider, I mean, I actually looked at 3 of the blocks, yeah. I only found one house which I believe is like the one that has not been yet actually developed, and all the other developments already put, I think, in my opinion, creates a reasonable damage to the street scene, and I actually take the view that this particular design would actually be appropriate to the location, and therefore I'm minded to say my view is that I don't think this refusal was correct as a correct decision.
Thank you very much. I did raise with officers some of the developments that have gone on, and we do have a photograph here of one that is permitted, but I understand that there are other developments down there that are being investigated with regards to planning enforcement. Can you assist us with that, Mr. Ronnie?
Thank you, Chairman. The photograph that you see, that was granted permission. It was back in 2008, so it is quite an old permission that was granted, and at that time it did comply with the Council's requirements. Whether it complies now is another matter, but policies were slightly different, and the HDAS was being updated at that point. So that was granted prior to that. The other extension, I believe, is at number 20, which I don't have a photograph of, but I can find no planning history for that, and enforcement investigations are proceeding on that. We are looking to see, I'm surprised that anyone would build a 2-storey side extension without permission, so investigations are ongoing as to whether that is particularly the case, and but as I said, I did check today, and there is no recent planning history relating to a 2-storey side extension to that property.
Okay, so in some ways that rather complicates the matter, in that we very clearly have a property that has been developed and is quite lawfully developed at the other end of this terrace, and that is a material consideration. You do have to take into account that has an influence on the street scene, and that makes it a slightly more difficult balance in my view, because we're not talking about a perfectly preserved original blocks here, and I'll bring in Councillor Money at this point.
Thank you, Chairman. I couldn't attend the meeting on site, but I did do a Google Street View, and it seems to me that if you go down, if you start at the top of West Walk, every house is pretty much different. I don't think there's a certain character that all the houses follow, and going all the way down to even East Walk, so past the roundabout or past the junction, every house is different in my opinion. So I don't think that reason stands that we're shaping up the character or maintaining it. The reasoning behind the car park space, I completely agree with you. It's a very tight area and it's a very small street, even smaller than normal. So I think that should be welcomed. I think off-street parking, and I don't think there's an issue there. But most houses there are different, and there is no character in the area, as it were, to maintain. Looking at the plans for the development, it does sit with the rest of the street scene, or it would be an addition, an additional terrace, it looks like. So it would be maintained in that respect, in my opinion. So I'm minded to possibly approve as well.
If I can just hold you there, because there may be some dissenting views and we need to get those out. Councillor Stead.
Thank you, Chairman. If we go back to the other picture that showed not a car in sight, that isn't what we actually saw there, along there. That's not what we actually saw on the day when we were there. It was chock-a-block. So whether that's a sort of a regular scene where you see that amount of parking space still available, I don't know. But that's an aside. What I would like to mention is item number 4 on page 75. It says, in dealing with the application, the Council has implemented the requirement in the National Planning Policy Framework to work with the applicant in a positive and proactive way. The Council supports pre-application discussions. And the last bit on that I was sort of swaying me is that we have, however, been unable to seek solutions to problems arising from the application, as the principle of the proposal is clearly contrary to our statutory policies, and negotiation could not overcome the reasons for refusal. So it's basically saying, in my view, basically saying that you can talk till the cows come home, but you still won't get it to meet the procedures and meet everything else. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Other views? Councillor Yarrow?
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I have a problem similar to yours, in that in the street is a house that's the mirror image of what is being proposed here that we are talking about rejecting. And I think what I'd like to see is that was approved many, many years ago. What is different about the rules when that was built and the rules that exist now? Because it's vital to say that is it or is it not interfering with the street scene? And I'm unsure in my mind to the point of it being an unbalanced situation, as a lot of these things seem to be, as to whether it really is causing a problem with the street scene. Looking at that house, it isn't. But looking at another, it might be. Overall, I don't know. So I've got a real problem here with this one. And I haven't decided what to do yet.
I can understand your position. What we need to do is, if we could look at the plans and see the image of the development to be built, and you will see from the elevations that I would characterise this as quite a sympathetic development to the existing street scene, that they are adopting that cat slide roof it's been referred to, or the next bit on the side. It is reasonably balanced with the existing. It replicates the bay, it replicates the same front door that is visible in a number of other properties at the front. It is also true that a number of other properties have the front door at the side. Whether or not moving this one round to the front damages the street scene to such an extent that we should deny the building of another house is a committee decision. I would ask you to consider the extent of the flank wall. I think that is a valid consideration here that we've not heard mentioned. This is going to be deeper than the existing flank wall facing the properties that the garden sides onto, and it will be more visible as you enter the street. And I think that is a consideration as well. But it is very much an on balance. I've just confused the discussion further. However, the items are on the table, and I need you please to try and unpick this and come to a weighing up of the pros and cons here, the detriment to the street scene, which you are familiar with and seen in the photograph, the benefit of an additional property. I need a view to be drawn by the committee, please. You wish to come in? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. If I could just sort of draw members' attention to a couple of things. First of all, the comments from the Conservation Officer and the particular views that are expressed there, and also comments from the Conservation Area Advisory Panel. The issue is really about the infilling of the space around the buildings and the impact visually of that, plus the impact visually of the, as you've mentioned, the sidewall and the extent of that, rather than the design of the property and so on. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I agree, and that is helpful. Okay, Councillor Morse.
Okay. If you go to the front of the street and look in, what stands out is a shed, actually, in the gap. That sounds much more prominent than this building, which only advances forward a sort of a small amount. And I don't actually take the view, if you're looking into the street, that the actual visual impact is that serious, because I think there's other obstacles like the shed which actually look worse, in my opinion.
Thank you for that view. Colleagues, Councillor Ahmed-Walana.
Thank you, Chairman. This application was before us previously, and I have the same views as previously. I don't see any robust reason to overturn the office's recommendation. So it clearly says in the report as well, and we have seen that it has a detrimental impact on the street scene, and that is the area of special local character. I'll go with the officer's recommendations to refuse the application.
Thank you very much. So we have some leaning towards agreeing with, to overturn the officer's recommendations from some members, a movement to go with the officer's recommendation from another. Colleagues who have not spoken, can I have an indication of the way you wish to take this, please? Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it's another one on balance in terms of how we fall on, which side of the fence we fall on. I'm erring towards the sides of the officer's recommendation because, as Councillor Walana said, it is about the street scene and the reasons are there, and I will be happy to second it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Chapman. I know, that's why I'm pinning you down here. Microphone, please, sorry. Microphone.
Okay. I have to say, without wanting to use words like on balance, etc., I cannot think of a genuinely good reason to go against the officer's recommendation.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you were indicating somebody wishes to speak. No, James.
So I've given a point on the highways, but I do think the first refusal reason that officers could robustly defend that appeal, and the reason I think that is that you are changing the character of the street by introducing an additional dwelling on this site. And number 25, yes, has been extended, but it wasn't split into two separate houses on the site. And one of the concerns the conservation officer raises is that you are effectively creating a precedent here to subdivide plots if you allow this application. And if I look at the wider street scene in the area of special local character, I can see other plots that would then be at threat of a not dissimilar proposal. So you will, if you allow this, put in motion a change in the character of this area of special local character.
Thank you. That has been helpful. Councillor Yarrow?
Yes, can I just comment on that, because that is very helpful. How nice it would have been if some words like that had been in the actual report. It might have coloured my judgment without having to go through all the ramifications of it being an unbalanced situation. So I hear what you're saying, and I think that's a valid point, that we are creating another house rather than an extension to a house, and that does make a difference.
Okay, so we have formally proposed and seconded by Councillor Ahmed-Millan and Councillor Chamdal we go with the officer's recommendation. So show of hands, please, on that motion, please. And that is 5 against, 2 against. Okay, 5-2.
We also want
Thank
a
you.
minute.
Microphone, please.
I also like to minute that the reason we voted against was the evidence shown by 33 East Walk, 22 West Walk, and 25 West Walk, which are far worse than what we just refused.
Thank you very much. That has been duly minuted. Okay, we'll now move on to agenda item 13. Oh, sorry, cut the link, part 2.